Hello and welcome everyone again. This is Ankit from Currencies and this is our market roundup for May the 17th. We're going to break down today's market price action, take a look at the equity markets, take a look at cryptocurrency, take a look at Forex market and see where we are in the market, in the cycle, and what should we expect in the next 24 to 48 hours and how we're going to position ourselves in this upcoming 24 hours. So let's talk about it. Let's take a look at the markets together and do a quick market analysis. So looking at the markets today, again, we are seeing a bit of a recovery. Yesterday's candle was not an encouraging candle, so we were actually not sure if the market wants to go higher. But as you can see, today markets were able to not only gap higher, but also close on the highs of the day. Well, so we are still kind of below the 20 to 50-day moving average, but I just wanted to remind everybody that, again, this is still a downtrend, and we have seen this little bear rallies in the past, and the only thing that we will differentiate from these little rallies is what we saw back in March, where we saw that massive rally that got us above the 20, the 50, and the price action went from ultra bearish to actually bullish. Of course, that didn't hold at that time, but that's what we are. We are noticing a bit of a shift. We are not really selling off as we were last week. Every overnight session, again, a lot of the gains that came today were from overnight gains. But we actually saw market were able to hold on to these levels. Every time we saw a pullback in the markets today, we saw a bit of a rally off of that. Again, that's not the similar price action we saw last week where we got those rallies over on the overnight session, but then during the day, as the market opened up, it just gave all back up, and we almost started from scratch once again. So we're seeing markets behaving a little bit better, which is again an encouraging sign, especially if traders that were not happy with the volatility, which again makes it very difficult to pick a direction and kind of go with it. So that's what we're seeing in the markets. Similar thing we're noticing in the World Stock Index as well. Again, we're below the moving averages, but we're a lot more off the lows. In a grand scheme of things, this is still considered a bear rally, so we can't rule this out and say, well, this was the bottom and we're actually going to be super aggressively on the bullish side. I think we still need to be a lot more cautious until we get above these levels. Now, looking at the crypto world, I mean, this is the price action that does not look good over here. And anybody that's trading crypto, just realize, we are not in that uptrend. And each time, we're selling off, we're actually making a very little low base. We broke off of here. We start to make this little base here and then broke again. Again, this price action is very anemic. Not a good sign, especially if you're trying to buy into cryptocurrency again. It doesn't seem like the cryptocurrencies is bottomed. They're more like making a low base. So as far as our outlook goes for this week, the markets are still as a -2 because we are still below all these moving averages. There's still downside pressure, and of course, in any sort of bear market, we will see these rallies. In any of the bull markets, we'll see these pullbacks. That's pretty common. So we have to kind of see if what kind of follow through we get from that, because that's where you can actually decide, okay, well, that was it. So I can jump back into the markets and try to pick those positions. Now, this week, again, we have the next 24 hours is going to be a little bit more busier when it comes to news events. We have the pound CPI, we have Canadian CPI, and then we also have employment report out of Australia. So if you're looking for opportunities around news events, seems like tomorrow is the day. So I'll be actively looking at both the Canadian dollar to play, the Australian dollar to play, and also take a look at pound as well, as we're noticing pounds actually trying to make a bit of a recovery here. So let's talk about currencies. Let's take a look at crypto markets and see what kind of day we got today percentage-wise and where we should be focusing on in the next 24 hours. So let's start with cryptocurrency. And you can see that the cryptocurrency was kind of mixed, where we had the Bitcoin wasn't really as strong. Again, 0.84%. Look at Ethereum, only 1.21%. But as you can see, the Bitcoin Cash was up 6.88, Litecoin was up 6.72. So really a mixed picture in this crypto world. But most importantly, we need to pay attention to Bitcoin and Ethereum. And then as you can see, both of them on a day like today, when markets rallied 2%, S&P was up 2%, Nasdaq is up 2.6%, and then small caps are up about 3.21%. A day like this, we actually did not see that translate into this crypto world. So be very cautious. let's talk about currencies. And as you can see, currencies have definitely shifted a little bit. And we are actually now noticing both the dollar and yen being the underperformer. So it seems like a little bit of the air is coming out of the dollar. I mean, if we looked at the dollar in that dollar video that we just, we posted just a day ago, and dollar has actually had nice appreciation, about 8 to 9% since the beginning of that run in April. So as it's giving up this level, not a surprise when price action is extended, is due for a pullback. That's exactly what the dollar is doing. Yen, on the other hand, it has been in a downtrend. We got these positive days, got us out of that downward trend line, but it seems like it's very quickly giving back those gains. Now, outside of that, and this is where you'll notice the price action today was a lot more opposite from what we saw yesterday. We actually had weak euro and Swiss franc yesterday, and you can see that both of them were actually strong today. And then what was strong yesterday, Canadian dollar, was actually weak today. So it seems like we're getting this mixed price action as this rally is taking place in the markets. We're not really seeing that same enthusiasm when it comes to the movement in the currency market, especially if you take a look at Aussie, only up 0.2%. Kiwi is only up 0.27%, and CAD is actually down 0.32%. But majority of the moves were really in the yen and the dollar. So if you had pair Kiwi against the yen, that's a 1% move right there. Or looking at pound against the yen or euro against the yen. Again, these were better pairings. So overall, yen was a pair of it as a currency to play today. But outside of that, we saw some movement in the dollar. And again, similar price action in currencies as well. We are not really seeing those quick moves, those high volatility. Things seems to be kind of getting under control over here, which is again an encouraging sign, especially if volatility is not your cup of tea. So velocity scores. Yesterday, a lot of the things were kind of in the middle, and with a -1 and a +1. We actually finally getting some +2 price action and a -2 price action. Again, yen being the worst one. And in the outperformer side, we have pound, we have euro. These are the ones that are actually performing a little bit better here. So it's worth taking a look at these charts. And then the outperformers like the dollar and the CAD is taking a little bit of a break here. Remember, trend scores are still pretty high on those currencies, but then every currency can actually take a little break. A strong currency can pull back, and a weak currency can rally, but that's just a normal technical chart pattern. +1 again, we have the Aussie, the Kiwi, the Swiss franc. That's where we're seeing some of the gains. And let's take a look at and see if these are the currencies to actually still worth paying attention to, or should be actually focusing more on currencies like euro or pound. But the problem with those currencies is that the trend scores are not as strong. So we are getting some of the movements that are not as obvious when it comes to the continuity of the price action, but definitely there's an opportunity. So this is where we talk about trade the currency that's currently in play, and it's the same thing goes with any instrument or any stock. Trade what's in front of you, trade what's moving, instead of trying to pick a direction and you have to time it, and those things could take a lot longer. Our trades are shorter term. So we have to pay attention to what's moving on a day-to-day basis so we can actually take advantage of that movement. So let's dive into charts and take a look at possible trades ahead. And as you can see in the charts over here, let's start with dollar. Again, dollar has been quite a currency to play on the upside. And what we're noticing here is that the dollar is actually giving up a little bit more of his gains. And as you can see that the dollar has been in a nice uptrend since April. And each rally, very shallow pullback, rally, shallow pullback. So that's the pattern that we were seeing. So the question is this is a trend changing move. Remember, for a trend changing move, we need to get a lower low with a lower high and another lower low. That kind of establish a trend changing move. This still is in a bit of a pullback formation. I would expect this formation to kind of have one more bounce here and see if this is going to be a buying on opportunity, or if this resistance level is still going to hold. As we discussed in the currency in the dollar video, we would discuss this and then see if this dollar resistance level is still going to be in place for the next coming weeks. So right now we're seeing a slowdown in that momentum, but that's okay. Sometimes we need to see things correct And then they look at the RSI. We're getting towards the bottom end of the range. Question is this a buying opportunity or is this a selling opportunity? So as you look at long-term charts, these things have been very resilient. So we need to see a bit of a base or a bit of a bear rally to then confirm that the dollar actually wants to go lower. Now the yen actually is doing the exact same thing, and we talk about yen. It did break above the moving averages and then kind of fell right back into it. So at this point, if you take a look at dollar chart, you can see that it had a breakout. It did pull back, but then actually pulled back below the resistance point. So it seems like we're kind of back in the lower end of the range of the Japanese yen. So what do you want to pair these currencies with? Because if you take a look at Aussie, I mean, a day like today, Aussie did not rally. So that's not a good sign if you're trying to buy the Aussie. You know, we want a currency to be actually making a higher highs and then higher lows, and especially on days like today where there was such a positive price action. This price action looks a little bit weaker to me, so, which is telling me it's not ready to be played. It's not ready to be played on the upside. Maybe on a further confirmation for our chart, we can see that we got a double top over here. But if you take a look at the daily chart, we actually making lower high with a lower low with some bear rallies. So far we have this prior resistance point or prior support is now the resistance. So it seems like we're just trying to struggle right over here, trying to figure out which way the Aussie wants to go. So I would say make sure you're following your relative strength and weakness and not just totally relying on correlation. A lot of times traders want to jump on because okay, markets are strong, so I'm gonna buy some of the riskier currencies like the Aussie, the Kiwi, but not necessarily they will have a move. The correlation goes in and out, so it's not always 100%. Same thing goes with commodities. It doesn't mean if oil is strong, then the CAD needs to be strong as well. You know, these correlations are not always as accurate. But as you take a look at this chart, you know, what we can see is that we did break that very key support level, and we are just stalling right there. So at this point, we are still in a bear rally formation. I think this has better chances to roll over. But if it does get above this range, then perhaps we can see the Aussie go higher. Actually, this is another pair that I was watching, and you can see that the Aussie dollar, it's in a bear rally formation, but this was a very important level of support, that 70 level. So it seems like today we were just going back and forth, and at the end of the day, it seems like we managed to close above the 70-18 level. So if you're trying to be buying the Aussie, and depending on what currency you're pairing with, if you take a look at Aussie dollar is at a very good important cross point here. So it's still in a bear rally formation, but if this has reclaimed the support once again, then we probably see the price action go back and forth in there. But it's still a bit early to make that call. We actually have made some turns in other currencies as well, like the dollar CAD. Remember, we covered this, and then this almost broke above that 129.50 to test 30.50, and then since then we actually have nice 3-day pullback. So question is it something that we want to buy the pullback, or are we just playing a massive range where it tops and then it just start to correct, just like it has done in the past? So 3 days of pullback, we have to get a confirmation and see if this continues on, or there is a sort of buying come into the markets. Similar things we are noticing in other pairs like euro dollar, and you can see that the euro dollar, a very important level of support as you go back in time. This support was tested back in late 2016, 2017, and you can see that we are kind of bouncing off right off that level. Still a lot of ground to recover, but in the shorter term, we could easily see these levels play out. But the question is this a support? Are we holding it? Or are we going to rally from here? So confirmations are what we're looking for in a lot of these currency movements. Outside of that, I mean, if we go into Swiss franc, which again was a surprise for the last few days, Swiss franc has been kind of underperforming. And a day like today, Swiss franc came on and actually had a decent day. Question is this just another selling opportunity? And this is where take a look at this very key level of support. If it does break that support, then yes, we want to be more short. But at this point, it just try to find a bit of a support over here. So maybe this is where it could go actually either way. You could try to bounce off of this, or you could actually break. So we need to be prepared for both case scenarios. So outside of that, if you take a look at Canadian dollar, similar scenario was actually weak, but overall the trend score is pretty strong. It's +3. So velocity is telling us not the right time. The daily is telling us, well, daily is telling us that it's ran into a very key resistance level, and if you just zoom into the chart, we actually still holding the breakout point. We only given up some of the gains from that breakout, but still holding in there. So we need to be careful about this, because we don't want to be calling the top and say let's short this, because it's not really giving us a signal yet to go short. Outside of that, if you take a look at the Kiwi, again, they're kind of doing the very similar thing. If you look at the chart for the Kiwi, I mean, it has been a lot more weaker, but you can see that we have a bit of a bear rally, but the price action is not that good. So we have to be playing where the price action looks a little bit better. Now, pound actually had a nice little day today. You can see that we got a nice little update today, but overall, the trend score still is not as strong. So you can play the velocity, which means that I can play on a day-to-day basis, but clearly on a daily chart, it doesn't really have any trend in place to take advantage of. Same thing goes with the euro. We got a nice little velocity move today, but velocity moves is good for a day. That doesn't mean we will have a follow-through tomorrow, because the trend is not as strong. We want to play things that have a stronger trend. So when you get these little pullbacks, they're a great opportunity to buy into. And these rallies, this bear rallies, you short into if you're still liking the price action to the downside. So just to summarize here a little bit, we are definitely seeing a bit more of a lagging price action in the currencies. The cryptocurrencies looks weak. Some of the growth currencies that should have had a great day today, they didn't. So whenever you get that disconnect, it's always important to not play that correlation, like I said before. Look at the relative strength weakness, play that. You'll be better off than try to time these things right, because correlation is always going to go in and out. So focus on what currencies at play. Velocity, like I said. If your trend score is not there, if your trend score is 0, but then you're getting a nice velocity score, you can definitely trade the velocity. But again, those trades are likely to be shorter, as on a nice trending trades, we can actually hold it for a little bit longer. So that's the outlook for today. We'll be in touch. We'll be keeping an eye on the markets and then see which way it takes us, and we'll be ready for whatever happened in the markets, either bullish or bearish. Thanks everyone. Have a good evening.